Hello everyone, my name is Avery Morris, and for my food presentation I chose to do it over a Caprese dish. I will be focusing mainly on the ingredient basil. So let's talk about the history and culture. Caprese salads date back to the early 1920s after World War I in Italy. The whole idea behind what made the Caprese come to life was paying a tribute to the Kingdom of Italy's colors, which are red, green, and white. A caprese is made from tomatoes, basil, and fresh mozzarella. It can also be known as insalata tricolor. No one knows where the caprese was invented for sure, however, stories have been told that it was invented on the island Capri. This dish does not involve any cooking, however, the flavors are so intense, and I will be focusing on what I believe is the most important ingredient, which is basil. Basil first originated in India, however, is now across the globe and used for various reasons. Research shows that Alexander the Great first brought basil to Italy and used it to draw the poison from bug bites. In many countries, basil is used and associated with different things, such as in Italy, it is known as a symbol of love. However, here in the United States, we just view it as a strong tasting herb. Now let's talk about the nutrient composition. First, let's go over the ingredients of a caprese. It is most seen served with sliced tomatoes, balls or chunks of mozzarella, basil leaves, and then it is drizzled with olive oil and balsamic. Sometimes salt and pepper is added for a little extra taste, and it also depends on how much you use of each of these ingredients to determine your exact nutrient composition. However, here I have laid out some of the nutritional values for tomato, mozzarella, and basil. Some of the things that I will point out, starting with tomato, is that it is very high in potassium and vitamin C, with 292 milligrams of potassium and 28% vitamin C. For mozzarella, it is very high in calcium with 96% and also very high in potassium as well with 125 milligrams. And then last but not least, basil. It has hardly little to no nutritional value. However, there is 18 milligrams of potassium, which is very interesting, and a 1/4 cup of basil is only 1 calorie. Overall, basil, like I said, does not have a lot of nutritional composition other than the potassium, but it still holds a very intense taste. So now let's move on to talk about the relationship to disease. Basil in the past was commonly used worldwide to treat various things. However, it contains a chemical called estragol, which can put people at risk for liver cancer. It has been seen that this chemical, when consuming large amounts of basil, has given laboratory mice liver cancer. Basil also has a lot of oils and extracts that have been linked to decreasing blood clotting, which can potentially increase bleeding, especially if you have a bleeding disorder. It is said that you should stop eating large amounts of basil at least 2 weeks prior to surgery, just in case it affects your blood from clotting properly. The extracts in basil have also been known to lower blood pressure. This would not be too harmful, however, in the case that if you already have low blood pressure, it could lead to more serious issues. So now let's move on and talk about the fresh and high quality of basil. When it comes to knowing whether your basil is fresh or high quality, it is very simple. If you were harvesting it yourself, you should pick smaller amounts to encourage better growth for your plant. However, you can still harvest any amount if need be. Once you have harvested, you should pick the leaves off of the stem and examine them for any dark or brown spots that you see. If you see spots, either pick off that entire part of the leaf or just discard the entire leaf. After that, you can proceed to wash them. You can let them dry on their own or pat them dry with a paper towel. And once the leaves have dried, you are ready to use them for any dish you desire. So next, let's go on to talk about the agriculture of basil. Basil is commonly referred to as king of the herbs because it is grown all over the world. It grows best in drained, fertile soil in tropical and subtropical regions. Basil needs to stay moist and should be watered weekly. However, if you are growing it in a container inside, it may need water more frequently. Basil tends to live the best during warm and sunny months, which is usually ranges about 4 to 5 months. However, if you were growing it inside, it could potentially live longer, maybe 7 to 8 months. Harvest happens usually when the plant is around 6 to 8 inches in height. So now let's talk about how to prepare a caprese. So step 1, you're going to gather your ingredients and wash them. Step 2, you're going to slice your tomatoes in round slices and put them on a dish. Step 3, you're going to take your balls or chunks of mozzarella and sprinkle them pretty evenly on top of all of the slices of tomatoes. Step 4, you're going to drizzle them with olive oil and balsamic, and then you could also sprinkle them with a little bit of salt and pepper if you desire that. And then step 5, which is the final step, you're going to top each of the tomatoes with a basil leaf or however much basil that you want, and enjoy, because this is one of my favorite little snacks now. So moving on to how it tasted. I have tasted this dish several times before, and every time I will say it does surprise me with how much taste it has. I have traveled to Capri, Italy before and experienced my first ever caprese salad there. It was about 2 years ago, and I was so stunned to see that this dish was very frequent over in Europe. And also at how fresh it was every single time that I had it. The tomato and mozzarella go together very well, and then when you taste the basil and balsamic, it truly tastes so clean. I don't even know how really to describe it. Basil has a very sweet yet minty taste to it, and it is also very strong. I eat it on several other things here other than a caprese salad, but a caprese salad is probably my favorite that I've eaten with basil. I think of this dish more as like an appetizer or beginner course because it is very simple to throw together and it does not involve any cooking. So now let's move on to the picture. Here is what your caprese or caprese dish should look like whenever you are finished preparing it. It is very yummy, and I really think that you should go and try it. Now let's move on to my comparison. My social and cultural perspectives on basil would most likely be very different from people who are from other countries because basil is used in so many different ways. I have only ever experienced basil used as an herb in culinary. However, other countries use it for culinary and things such as medicine and many other beliefs. So that is the end of my presentation. Next, I have my rinse slide here, and thank you so much for listening and watching my presentation.